Hello, I'm Carwyn Jones, and welcome to this series of podcasts where I talk to the movers and shakers in the Welsh economy. Where are they from? What's their background? What are they doing now? What's their vision, not just for the future of their business, but also the future of Wales? I'm delighted to be joined today by Heather Myers, who's the CEO of the South Wales Chamber of Commerce. Heather, you're very welcome indeed.
Good morning, thank you.
Now, I see from your CV that you worked for Carwyn at one time, Chief Exec of the Abergavenny Food Festival.
Yes,
Sounds like
yes.
a fun job. And then on to Cloud9 Estates, and you've been with the South Wales Chamber of Commerce in one form or another for the past 2 years and 9 months.
Yes.
So tell us about your journey from Carwyn Council and then towards the Chamber of Commerce.
People ask me about that because it's not an easy leap to make, really, from how does somebody who started in town planning end up running South Wales Chamber of Commerce. But it's actually quite a logical journey because it's all about transferable skills. And transferable skills are so important that we recognise the skills that we have. So I graduated as a student from Sheffield University, and then I went on and did a master's degree in Bristol Poly, as it was then, University of West of England, in town planning. And for 20 years, I was a public servant doing town planning and regeneration projects across Carwyn, and then more latterly getting into the governance structures of democracy and scrutiny in Carwyn, which was a fantastic job. And what it taught me was the value of relationships, the value of negotiation, the ability to converse with people at all different levels, but also the value of money and making sure that you look after the pennies. Because when you're a public servant, obviously it's not your money, it's taxpayers' money. But in business, you have to make sure that your cash flow, that your expenditure, control of expenditure is really important. And working in the public service really teaches you that. In 2011, I was made redundant, and I have to tell you, it was pretty devastating at the time. But thinking about the transferable skills that I had, I thought, well, I'm pretty good at management. I understand business. I've done a number of voluntary roles. So I set myself up as Cloud9 Planning and Regeneration. And pretty much...
Where did the name come from, Cloud9? Well, we know what it means, but why did you choose Cloud9?
I chose Cloud9 because actually when I thought about it, I realised that the opportunity to restart my career, refocus, repurpose myself, actually meant that I was on Cloud9. And sometimes we have to step out and take the brave move. Sometimes we can do it, sometimes we're forced to do it. Being forced to do it, I would never have probably left public service, but I would never then have had the career that I've had since and learnt about the skills that I've developed, or had the confidence really to move into different roles. So that's why Cloud9 really, because I genuinely think that it put me on Cloud9, and I've been there ever since, to be honest. Not that I didn't enjoy public service, but to be honest, the roles I've had since have been brilliant. So picked myself up and set myself up as a consultancy and got a great contract with a charity up in Merthyr, an amazing young person's charity, to help them put the governance structures and get the finance straight. And they were taking children from really deprived areas and giving them after school care and opportunities around sport and culture and food that they would never have had. So I worked there for a number of years, probably 2 years. And I was then lucky enough to be offered the Abergavenny Food Festival job.
Well, you were doing that, and you were running a business at the same time. So obviously, a lot of work there.
I worked out that I was running my own business, but also when you're a consultant, you take the work, right? So I think I got contracts that were worth about 6.5 days a week, which I was running over, trying to run over 5 days. So there were very long hours. It got pretty tiring, but it can be feast or famine. So when the work is there, you take it. And so long as you're healthy and fit and able to do it, and you've got the resilience, then you work those hours, because you just don't necessarily know where the next contract's coming. So I did that for a little while. Then it became a little bit too much. I've got 3 children as well. So, being a mum, fitting all that in was a bit of a juggle. So I then committed fully to the food festival, which I did for 4 years.
So in January 2013, you make the move into something very different,
Yes.
away from urban regeneration, away from planning, and into running a food festival.
Yeah.
What were the main challenges for you when you made that big step?
It's funny because it sounds like it's a complete departure, but actually regeneration is about relationships in town centres, and it's all about project management. So running an event is all about project management. I mean, it's literally project management in the raw, because there is a fixed deadline. And when you're running a project like Abergavenny, there's not a lot of money in there. It's all goodwill, it's relationships, it's creating that vibe that people want to be involved and put their time in for free or donate things. So you have to bring a lot of energy to it. And I have to say, for the first year, it's a huge festival. I mean, it's enormous. For anybody that hasn't been, you must go. It's the third weekend in September, and it's vast. So the first year, I felt like I was on a galloping horse, and I was just trying to stay on, to be honest, and not fall off. And then over the next few years, I managed to shape it and shift it into a much more financially viable prospect. And each year you're trying to keep enough of the same so that people feel like it's familiar, but change enough so that they want to come back. So those thought processes and that creativity was really, really good fun.
I've got to say, I was in the festival, not last September, but the September before, and it was a great festival.
It's great.
The only thing that happened to me was I was carrying a small rucksack, so we could buy a few things and carry them easily, and everybody thought I was Derek Brockway.
Oh,
I get that all the time. It's an old story. Derek knows this, but it was the rucksack that did it, I think.
It probably was. I thought you were going to say
the weatherman walking. Look, there we are.
Yeah, there he is. I thought you were going to say that your rucksack wasn't anywhere big enough, because I get told that all the time. It's like, well, I took a rucksack, but I really should have brought a whole trolley with me. Yeah,
and we came by train as well. It's important to sample a few of the
absolutely.
A few of the drinks on offer. There we are. So November 2016, you become a director of the South Wales Chamber of Commerce. Then in May of last year, you become the CEO.
Yes.
So what prompted that move?
When I came into the Chamber's had quite a checkered history, really. A lot of people over the years have become familiar with the Chamber of Commerce, whether it was Swansea or Cardiff or Newport. And over the years, it's become one great big organisation, which is why the South Wales Chamber doesn't really cover the geographical area. And what happened was that there was a public sector contract to deliver enterprise services, and with the reshaping, that contract was given to a different provider. So the Chamber of Commerce really hadn't had anybody looking at specifically at it in much detail outside the enterprise agency work. And when I came in, there was a finance director in place who'd been managing his way through the change. And I was brought in to manage part of the Chamber, but not all of it. And when he took retirement just before Christmas in 2014, I think it was, the board said, would you take on the entire kit, kat and caboodle and start to manage it as one service, because it had sort of become a bit siloed, even for a small organisation. That silo mentality, which can exist in big organisations, had sort of filtered its way in. So since then, I have taken on the entire provision of the Chamber, including a property portfolio that we have as well. And I'm now galvanising it into one, hopefully, singing from the same song sheet organisation.
There'll be a lot of people who will have heard of the Chamber of Commerce but won't have much of an idea of what it does. What would you say are the main objectives of the Chamber of Commerce?
The main objectives are very simple. It's to drive UK and international trade for Wales, and to be the strong independent voice for business in Wales.
So if I'm an SME, what does the Chamber of Commerce offer me in terms of support and help? What are you able to do? We
offer... essentially, we've been seen as a networking organisation. I'd like to move away from that, because there are some brilliant networking organisations out there. What we offer is a network. So what I like to describe it as is it's like a consultancy that you buy services, expertise, opportunities, networks when you join the Chamber of Commerce. I've alluded to it already. South Wales Chamber doesn't really describe us. We're South West and Mid. We cover Powys, Ceredigion, we cover Pembrokeshire, right to Monmouthshire, Swansea, Cardiff, Newport. So we've got a lot of opportunities on the patch. And when you join the Chamber, what you get is a relationship manager. You get access to those links that they have through the membership that we have. We're very keen to connect our members to each other. But we also have access to politicians. We have access to support services. We're the only accredited British Chamber of Commerce in Wales. So we have access to 53 other UK chambers, and about 49 overseas British chambers, and access to the expertise that the British chambers offer from London. And I don't want to go on too much about the British Chambers, but that big network is unique. I don't know any other membership organisation that's able to offer that reach. What we'll do in Wales is that we will listen. I do a lot of listening to what businesses are telling me are the barriers that get in the way. And then we'll look at ways of creating services or resources to unblock those barriers. So the barriers to growth of that may be through infrastructure, that may be because they're looking for supply chains, they're looking for new markets. So what we're constantly trying to do, it's almost a bespoke relationship we have with the members to say, what are your sales objectives? What are your growth plans? And how could we help you get there quicker from the network that we've got at our fingertips?
And what would you say are the main challenges that businesses face at the moment? I mean, Brexit's going to be there, isn't it? And the uncertainty that it causes, regardless of your view on it, there's a great deal of uncertainty out there. What else do you think is concerning SMEs at the moment?
The two messages I hear all the time are infrastructure and skills. Finding the right people, retaining the right people, and also having the right infrastructure. And that's not just road and rail, that's mobile connectivity. And I think what we're seeing in the business community a lot more, and I think this will land more in the future, and we need to think about this, is that our workforce don't necessarily want to work in the traditional ways they have in the past. They want quality of life. They perhaps want to work in different ways. And the infrastructure needs to be there to enable them to do that. I've heard somebody say, I want to do the job I want to do, where I want to do it, when I want to do it. And I think as people are entering the workforce, we're seeing that Generation Z have got quite a different take on it. So to enable an infrastructure that doesn't just move goods and people across the road system, although that is pretty vital at the moment, I have to say, but thinking about what infrastructure we might need in the future to attract those people into the workforce.
I've always said that the broadband in the 21st century is the equivalent of the railway lines in the 19th.
Absolutely.
If you're not connected, you're remote.
Yeah.
And I think there are great opportunities for ensuring that people can work from home and be equally as productive.
Absolutely, yeah.
And secondly, of course, to try to help to drive rural regeneration, where people don't have to feel they've got to move from a rural community into somewhere more urban in order to get a particular job. If you get the digital infrastructure right, then people are able to more or less live where they want and still be able to have a job that otherwise, maybe 10, 15 years ago, they would have had to move in order to get.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And, I think one of the things that we're missing a trick in Wales on is that we have the most amazing landscape. We have the most amazing coastline. We have a quality of life that I would say is comparable with anywhere. And yet, to enable people to access those types of lifestyles, we need to have that mobile connectivity to enable them to work and drive the economy from those places. So it's as much about the mobile connectivity. And, we are one of the few organisations that really is on the patch in Mid Wales. We have a brilliant relationship manager, Kerry, who is also works with Mid Wales Manufacturing Group. And the challenges in the different parts of Wales are clear. But that type of connectivity is what will enable Mid Wales to find its place in the world much stronger. And I hope the growth deal addresses that.
I remember, it's a good few years ago now, over a decade ago, the Tourist Board produced an advert of a man standing on one of the Welsh mountains. And the strapline was area of outstandingly bad mobile phone reception. I remember thinking, is that really what we're trying to say to people?
Help, does it?
Okay, there are some people who want to zone out and they want to get away from the world, but in reality, most people want still to be connected, even if they're on holiday. And I remember thinking, that's just not a good way of selling Wales. We wouldn't try to do that now, because we want to show how connected we are, not how remote we are. Yeah,
and I think that's in a sense where one of the things that I feel that Wales is missing is that we've got such exemplar businesses, we've got such a strong offer. In fact, I think our offer is so strong we don't sometimes know where to start. Are we a world-leading semiconductor cluster? Are we world-leading on biosciences? Do we have an amazing landscape? Have we got leading academics? Do we have a strong skill set, a huge graduate population in Cardiff? Well, yeah, we've got all of that. So where do you start selling that?
Do we have enough confidence in ourselves, do you think?
No.
But how do we improve that?
I think we talk a lot about confidence and we talk a lot about our USP. I think we need to try and settle on less and focus on some key aspects, because the other stuff is clear to see anyway. And of course, I think we're also a little bit parochial. So we have to be careful. And I think the Cardiff City region and the City deal in Swansea is starting to address that. But we had a great debate on Tuesday night at our AGM, actually, and we had a tale of three cities. So we were discussing the opportunities and threats that we can potentially put in our own way between having Newport, Cardiff and Swansea close together. Now, within Wales, it's really important that we understand those regional differences. But outside of Wales, we need to sing with one voice and look at all the opportunities across the regions, I think.
One of the issues that has raised its head a few times in these podcasts is the problem we have in persuading SMEs that have grown to a point to make that jump to become perhaps a PLC, to get listed on the AIM or the stock exchange. We're underrepresented, and
Yes, we are.
even though everybody can understand if someone's built up a business and someone comes along and offers them millions, of course it's very tempting. But we don't seem to be able to get people to make that jump. They either sell and go off and sail around the world, whatever they want to do with their money, but they tend not to actually want to make that jump. Is that a cultural issue, do you think? Do people think that it's a bit scary to make that jump?
I don't even know whether it's that or whether it's just that we're very entrepreneurial, and that people who set up the companies are quite often, they go on to do other things.
True.
So whether or not it's that when you get to a certain point, they're more interested in developing the new ideas and bringing up the new companies that will then sell off, as opposed to trying to, settle it in Wales. So I think there's a bit of both going on. In terms of growth, we do a lot of work with growth businesses. The offer that we have, because we're about scaling up, creating opportunities, connections, access to politicians, that tends to work better with the growing businesses rather than the micro end, although we have a great offer for the micros. But in terms of the growth, I think what we've been looking at is making sure that businesses have got a good set of basic hygiene business plans in place. Sometimes businesses grow, but they have some of the bits in place, but they've grown quite quickly and they don't have that basic business planning behind them. But I think what it's also really important to do for those businesses is to get them investor ready, to create a competitive mindset, and to recognise there are key sector strengths and look at some clusters. So I think there's some strong growth opportunities there. And maybe what we end up with is clustered sectors around key areas. So rather than just one great big Google, we have an amazing cluster of smaller businesses, because maybe our mindset works better in Wales like that.
Yes, I mean, there is more, it strikes me there's more of a tendency for people in Wales, or entrepreneurs in Wales, not to want to make that jump. It happens. I mean, of course, people will sell businesses anyway. Of course they will. But we seem to have a particular issue with it in Wales. And it then, of course, translates into the fact we have very few companies that are headquartered in Wales, big companies. Yeah. And if you're headquartered somewhere, you're far less likely to move.
Yes.
And that's been the Welsh economy has got a very, very broad base of SMEs, but the pinnacle is actually quite low because there are so few of the bigger companies
or something, isn't it? It's a very small proportion.
So how many businesses have you got who are members at the moment? How big is the organisation?
Well, because when you join the chamber, it's not just the business; it's all your employees become members. So our members employ 50,000 employees, and they collectively turn over about 4 billion in the Welsh economy. So it's a sizable set of individuals. And the really important part for me is because it's across such a big patch and it's all sizes and all sectors, we're working with people who, and I use the phrase, I like to connect the phrase livelihood with neighbourhood with community. And what we find our membership, particularly because of the connections and the lobbying and the influence, they're very civic-minded businesses. And I think sometimes people think that business is all about take. Most of our businesses want to give back in some way, whether that's to improve the economic environment of Wales, improve the investment in their own communities. But chamber businesses tend to be civic-minded. So not only are we engaging with quite a large proportion of employers across Wales, we're actually dealing with those employees that are really interested in giving back. So it's a really nice relationship that we have.
And of course you host the Wales Business Awards.
Yes.
I've always thought that it's really important for businesses to be able to see other businesses like them succeed.
Yeah.
It's one thing for a politician to say, well, you should look at doing this, because the answer will be, well, you do it then. Why are you telling me this? You're not running a business. But if you see a business like yourself, or that's very similar to your business, and that business succeeds and gets an award, that's the best. Example is the best inspiration.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that something that you find?
It's lovely.
Bit of a leading question, I know, but is that something that you find?
Simple answer, yes. Fuller answer would be that we're one of the few awards that actually does look at all. We're not around a specific category or a specific sector. So the categories that we've got are quite broad-reaching, and we reach businesses who have got 2 or 3 employees who are doing something exceptional in Pembrokeshire, to major exporters who are well-known, global players. And the lovely thing about that is, it's not, most of the success has come as a result of some setback somewhere. And I think that's the story that sometimes we hear of the success, but everybody's had to overcome a barrier of some kind. And our businesses that we work with who have been winners and finalists are quite happy to tell their story, let others know the journey. And we have quite a good set of medium to do that. Obviously there's news platforms like Business News Wales, but we have our own channels. So I think it's about celebrating success and inspiring another generation, and also explaining the very diverse nature of businesses we've got. One of the things that strikes me is that we've got some really, really amazing and interesting businesses, and then we go, who knew? Who knew that was happening in Wales? Who knew that was being delivered in Wales? And I think it's really important that not only the business to sport, but we are looking at ways of inspiring future generations of potential our workforce into thinking about, I had never thought about going into that type of industry. And then working with the academic sector to provide that kind of eye-watering a range of business opportunities, so that students have stronger aspirations. And if we can then say, well, you can do that in Wales, then that's a perfect circle for me.
You mentioned the academic sector there. One of the impressions I've had over the years is that there's a much greater, much closer relationship between academia and business now than there was 10 or 15 years ago. Because academic freedom we don't want to get too close to business. That'll interfere with our research, but that seems to have changed.
I think the whole collaboration across a whole range of different bodies is hugely improving. Yes, the work with the academic sector is really valuable to business, because research and development is vital. And universities are now using live work-based challenges to give to their students, so that it's a win-win. Because students also want to work on projects that are real, that have a real world benefit. It creates a relationship between a student and an employer that may lead to employment, or if not, it leads to a fantastic declaration on a CV, if nothing else. But to actually get businesses coming forward with their R&D needs now, I think is something we need to be stronger at doing. And we've even got some amazing companies that are providing cloud-based platforms to do that. And I think the difficulty's always been that businesses have thought, I've got so much to do, I'm not sure I've got time to engage with students. So if the universities, which they are making it easier for businesses to access and taking away the constraints and the headache, and they're saying, we'll manage it and we'll just come back to you with some solutions that we've sense checked, then, what's not to win? The business community need to engage with that. And especially I think now when, on a global scale, we see, competitors are investing across the globe and across Europe. So to work with the academic sector now on R&D is really important, because we don't want to get left behind because of the uncertainty that we've had in our economy for the last couple of years.
Let's talk about the future. Firstly, I'd like to take your view on what you see as the future for the Chamber of Commerce. What are the opportunities for the Chamber itself to develop, do you think?
I think that one of the things that, obviously we're very heavily based on the patch, and I think the networks that we create, so creating stronger networks, I would like to have a stronger presence with the politicians and lead on some research that we can give you to help provide insight into what policy decisions can be taken that would help business and what would get in the way. We're also very much known for our international trade credentials. We're one of the few business organisations that really jumps into that space, claims it and says, right, we understand it. So one of the huge opportunities I think for the Chamber and for Wales is to look at new markets. the international trade, not just into Europe, but across the world. And I think this is a trick that we're potentially missing. But not just that, the Chamber is looking at ways of supporting supply chains on the import side as well. And I think for too long we've been looking at export because obviously it generates good revenue. But what we haven't thought of is the cost implications of the import supply chains. And through the new systems that HMRC are putting in place, the replacement for the customs declaration system, the Chamber is really looking to be the no-brainer go-to organisation for anybody that is looking to do any kind of international trade. But I don't want us to put all our eggs in that basket because I think the work that we've got across the network and our presence on the patch is relevant to all businesses, service sector, smaller businesses, because we can get to people quite simply. We can open doors for people that other people can't get to.
And the future of Wales. If we were sitting here in 10 years' time, what would you have liked to have seen happen in that decade?
I would like to see us having a very strong, unique, consistent offer. I would like us to have businesses who have a competitive mindset and who are investment ready. I would like to see investment having landed to create confidence. I would like us to see us focusing on some key sector strengths so that we can compete in the internal market of the UK much stronger on some key sectors. And I would like us to be known as the place to do business where not only can you grow your business and create prosperity and generate jobs, but have an amazing quality of life.
That's a great aspiration to have, of course. You mentioned earlier on infrastructure and skills. I have to say, whenever I went abroad, that was the first question I was asked. Do you have the skills that we need to be successful in your country? It wasn't, how expensive are you?
No.
But have you got the skills pipeline? And increasingly, of course, we were able to do that.
Yes.
And we focused on business investment in areas where there were already other businesses in Wales in the same field, and they could see that there was a skills pool that was being created, and they could see that others like them could be successful. In terms of your future plans, obviously CEO now of South Wales Chamber of Commerce, what for Heather Myers, what's left for you to do now? There are always things to do, but what would you like to do in the future? How would you like to drive Wales forward and drive the Welsh economy?
I think for me, it's about embedding the connections that we've got through the Chamber network at the moment. As you can see, my career is twisted and turned, and I think one of my passions is creating a business culture and an entrepreneurial understanding within the student population. So for me next, I think when I finish, hopefully retirement not too far away, I would be passionate about bringing that insight of what businesses are looking for into our younger generation, and also just telling the story of Wales to keep our talent here so that it doesn't leave our shores, and we create that workforce that we so badly need, but we deserve and we can offer.
Heather Myers, thanks very much for joining us
Thank
today.
you.
It's been great having you on the podcast.
Thank you very much.